Welcome to the Progression Health Podcast. I'm here with David Millar. David, do you want to introduce yourself to the listeners?
What's going on, guys? My name's David. I'm currently a medical student. I like to do long running races and I do some social media stuff online and I'm sober. So
Brilliant. Yeah, a lot in common there. So, of all those, David, what are you most passionate about? What would you say is kind of the biggest thing you're working on right now?
I think everything in my life was built off of sobriety. That's the first thing that was introduced to me, and as a result, everything else kind of blossomed from there. So I'd say that.
So, yeah, what's your story with sobriety? What led up to you getting sober, and I guess what is your experience with not being sober?
I grew up like pretty normal family, and just like had basically every opportunity that I could have wanted. Nothing really crazy. My parents got divorced. There was like some chaos in our household, but it wasn't a crazy amount. And just, picked up a drink, and kind of had like a all in white light experience, and it just did things for me that I didn't think were possible to feel. And from that point forward, it was just kind of all in on drinking and eventually doing drugs, and eventually going to college and experimenting with more things, and just kind of like having addiction slowly take over my life to the point where I was dropping out of college. I was in and out of like psychiatric wards because I was taking drugs every day, stimulants. So I was up for like 5 days straight. They would like have to check me into like a psychiatric ward, because I was just saying like crazy things, drinking every single day, just didn't really care, trying to take my life, just totally like totally at rock bottom. And that was kind of like I was young too. I was like 19, 20 years old. So it was like pretty obvious that, something was wrong. And I don't know, like I have my family kind of just like it was so obvious that like my family just like wasn't gonna put up with it. Like it was obvious I was getting high. It was obvious something was wrong. So they kicked me out of the house. I was homeless for a while. And eventually like they would, come back and help me out when I was ready to try to get sober again. And after a couple tries, I ended up down in Florida and did like a 30-day rehab down there, and then ended up going out to California to do like a more long-term structured program. And that was back in April of 2019. So now we're here.
Wow, that's quite a story. And yeah, that's what drew me to you initially. You have a great platform on Instagram, and you're a runner as well. You're also sober, so we have a lot in common. And like we said, and yeah, so like you mentioned a white light experience. Just tell me a little bit about that, because that's like a pretty rare thing that I would, ever hear. So yeah, what was that initial white light experience? What
Yeah,
is it?
so I think it was just like part of like what the substance like did for me, like what alcohol did for me, like physically, and spiritually, but also like just I think it was also just like the act of like drinking and the act of like doing something I wasn't supposed to be doing, and just like the risk associated with it. I kind of just like it just felt good to me. And I had like another white light experience when I did cocaine for the first time. That was like my thing. Like once I did that, I was like, this is what I really like to do. And just kind of like I don't really it just made me feel like Superman. Like it just removed all the problems. It removed all the negative self-talk and the anxiety, and this social fear, and just everything, and just made me feel confident and gave me like free self-esteem that I didn't have to earn.
Yeah, that issue is real of not earning something and not earning self-esteem. So like before this experience, what was your life like up to that point? Like, were you on a pretty good trajectory? Because for me, before I actually started drinking, I was doing pretty good, pretty disciplined. You know, life was going pretty, it was on a good trajectory, but what was yours like before you had that experience?
It was, yeah, it was on a good trajectory, I would say. Like, I mean, I didn't know like exactly what I wanted to do. Like I never did I ever want to be like a doctor or anything like that. I played sports, had a lot of friends, but I don't know. Like I never really thought of my future like I think of my future today. I was kind of just like blindly going through life, kind of just more so trying to just like enjoy myself. Even before I was like drinking or anything like that, it was just like I was just trying to like enjoy myself. I didn't really like give thought to future or anything like that.
Right. And then I assume that only got worse, or yeah, how did that progress? As in, once you started to get into your addiction?
Yeah, so I mean, once I started getting into my addiction, it just nothing else mattered except getting high. Like that was it. It was nothing else mattered. Personal relationships didn't matter. Um, you know, like breaking moral codes it didn't matter. Um, it was just all about getting high. That was what my life was.
Yeah, just you become literally fully addicted. So can you like sort of pinpoint like what caused it, what led up to it? Like maybe someone else is listening and is like, struggling with their addiction themselves. Like, was there any telltale signs, or like, did you already know the first time that you got high or got drunk that it was like, oh, this is David plus this activity, they're not going to work well?
I think it was just like I mean, addiction runs in my family, so that could have something to do with it. Also, like, I just always noticed that when I would do things, I wanted to always do more. I wanted to be the person that like had the drug dealer's number. I want to be the person that was the middleman. I was always the person that was pushing to get the bag. I was always the person that was like trying to set up like splitting a bag, trying to sort out all the money. Just always in communication with the drug dealer. Like I just if somebody like finds themselves in that situation where like they crave doing things more than the people around you because it's pretty like blatantly obvious like if you do like I remember like I used to like keep Molly in my dresser drawer to just be able to pop like by myself. Like I wasn't like it was just I just would keep it there for me. So it's like if you're if you have like that urge to continue to push and continue to want to escape yourself more so than your peers, I think that's like a huge warning sign. But I also just think it's so normalized in the world today that it kind of like skews a lot of the perspectives on this because the normal thing to do, like you could argue that the normal thing to do when you're in your 20s is to pop Molly. Because that's just the way that the norm is right now. Like you're supposed to go to college, and most people that go to college get fucked up on the weekends. I had the experience of going to college as a sober person, and I also had the experience of going to college as a just regular like college kid drinking on the weekends. And I can tell you that there were a lot more people supportive of my like days in college when I was just doing what everybody else was doing, drinking on the weekends, then there was like it was much harder for me to find support and network and just like other peers doing the same thing I was when I was at college as a sober individual. It was very difficult to find people that weren't living the lifestyle of going out to the bar, blacking out, all those things. So I think what the point I'm trying to make is that like regardless of if you're an addict or if you're not an addict, because there's a lot of people on the internet right now that maybe they're not an addict. Like I don't even really like putting the label on it to be honest, because like, if you're 20 years old and you're trying to get sober, like totally sober, like off everything, it's ridiculously difficult because everybody else who's 20 years old in the United States is or 99.9% of 20-year-olds are doing the normal thing. They're going out and they're drinking on the weekends, they're smoking weed, they're occasionally doing drugs, they're going to concerts, like all this stuff. So, if you expect somebody even if they're not an addict and they're trying to just like change their life for the better because there's people out there like that, right? Like, there's people out there that especially with social media, like they see my page on social media, they see what I'm doing and they're like, well, I want to do that. So when I meet with these people and I take these people in, I always explain this to them, and I'm always like, it's going to be like very difficult because you need to be able to find the right peers. You need to find the people that aren't facilitating the bar, the whatever, like 9 to 5 class, 9 to 5 work, and then like Friday hits and then boom, like I'm in the bar. Saturday hits, boom, I'm in the bar. Sunday I'm waking up, I'm hungover, I'm slow, I lost all my momentum. For me it was just like I needed to be around people. I needed to be like very, very strategic about who I was around. I couldn't have any of those people in my life. To get to where I am today, like coming from the drug addiction background, coming from never being a good student, right? Like, I talk a lot about my SAT on my page. Like I got like a 10th percentile SAT score while I was in high school, right? And here I sit in medical school training to be a neurosurgeon. Like I'm not somebody who is just like naturally has this like intelligent gene that like I can just like remember information. Like that was never me. So, to go from that to this is like there is no room for anybody in your life that is like facilitating any of that normal lifestyle. I had to handpick like my circle around me, and 12-step programs are very beneficial for that because there's people in 12-step that are they don't they're just on the same page as you. And also in 12-step, you'll find mentors that are a lot older than you that have so much experience. So I would just meet with these guys that had like families for years and had all this like they had decades sober, and I would go get coffee with them for like a couple hours. I would just sit there with them and just mine wisdom. I still do that today because they just have all this just decade experience of sobriety in their life. So I just sit there and just mine wisdom from these guys, right? And my circle is like very, very tight, but also like very, very strong. These are all people that I can call. Well, I just did a 100-mile race. I got texts from. I'll literally read you the text right now that I got from my one buddy. He texts me every time before I do a race, and he goes, all this motivational stuff. And then he goes, one ring, I'm available if you want to call anytime during the night, right? So this guy's like 60 years old. He's gonna pick up. If I call him at 4 a.m. when I'm on mile 80 because I'm struggling, I need to talk to somebody, this guy's gonna pick up on the first ring. He's 60 years old, right? So having that kind of circle is really, really important.
Yeah, how like important is environment and like the people you surround yourself with and kind of seeing other people doing things you're aspiring to do for kind of like I guess your addiction in the past and sobriety now.
It's like everything. Like I place so much importance on it. And I used to live like this lifestyle of being like just as like this people pleaser and like always wanting to like be like in the cool group. Like I always wanted to be like in the cool group, like whatever the fuck that means. And I just lived this life where like I was just always like seeking, validation through those things. And then I got sober and like a lot was like learned, and my perspective like radically changed. And now it's just like everything is totally different, and I don't really like give a shit like what my social network like looks like to another person. Like I just know that like the people I have around me are going to show up for me, and they're going to tell me what I need to hear, not what I want to hear, but what I need to hear. They're not afraid to hold me accountable. Um, you know, and it's a bi-directional relationship. I can run literally anything by them. I'm not afraid to run anything by them. And these relationships have just been building and building and building over years. And they're all based kind of like, most of my friends are sober, so it's like they're all based on the, common problem and the common solution, which, fosters the bond even more, I feel like. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm very particular. I think people would arguably say I'm too particular about that. But it's just gotten me so far that I've just like, and I'm so used to like doing it. If somebody is like, if I see like the way somebody's living and they're like drinking a lot or like cheating on their girlfriend or like just like conversate, like just things they're saying to peers, like I have no problem just like, keeping it very surface level with that individual and, you know, like that's it. Not, and again, it's not like some kind of superiority complex here. It's not like some kind of like ego maniac thing. Like it's purely just like I need to be super intentional about who I surround myself with to get to where I want to go, right? To get to where I want to go, to stay sober, to do all these things, like all these things that I have in my life today, like the ultra marathons, like coaching, like none of this was these are all things that just kind of blossomed from this prioritization hierarchy. Like these are things that are a result of that, right? So yeah, I don't know, like people would probably argue that like I'm a little bit too particular about that, but it's just served me so well that like I really continue to do it. So yeah, I think that answers that question.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's understandable you're particular because in the past you probably weren't at all. So, you know, in the past, what was your bottom like or your bottoms, the trip to the rehab in Florida, LA, what was all that like? What, led up to you really just going away to a treatment center?
I mean, it was just like, honestly, it was just like a reset button most of the time. Like, it was just, I wanted a break from being on the streets, from feeling like shit. I wanted to try to, like, just wanted a bed to sleep in. And this stay down in Florida, though, was a little bit different because there was a group of, like, younger people at the rehab that they were just, like, excited about sobriety, which I had never really seen before. You go to rehab, like, most people are, like, they're just negative. Like they don't want to be there. They're trying to leave for whatever reason. They have like a job they're trying to get back to. And I was always that way. And I still was that way when I was entering this rehab. But the kids there were just like, and they were my age and they were just excited about sobriety. Like I'd never seen anything like it. Like they were just excited to get in the rehab van and go to meetings. They were excited to work the steps. They were excited to get a sponsor, go to the gym. Like all these things, and it was really like a small clientele at this rehab, so I was kind of forced by necessity to be around these people. And because of that, like a lot of their excitement and positivity ended up wearing off on me. And it made me open-minded in the slightest bit to just be like, okay, maybe I'll stay down here with these guys because like I don't know, like I've been hanging out with them, so like why not? They're all talking positively about sobriety and meetings and all these things, like maybe I should just stay down here. And then that led me to somehow like getting an opportunity to go out west, like from like a uh what are the social worker, like there was just some opportunity and I ended up getting on a plane going out to LA and doing like a long-term, like year-long program of just like intense accountability, sobriety. You had to go to like 2 meetings a day, writing essays every single day. um all these things that kind of like it was sobriety, but it was also just like developing into an adult and like learning how to take care of yourself and learning how to treat other people. And so I did a year out there, and that was another thing that really changed my life for the better.
Yeah, clearly. So let's just say there's someone who's like not really sure about like, do they have an addiction? Should they get sober? What should they do? And they're kind of just like, yeah, this guy David, he's great, but it sounds like a lot of work. He went away to Florida, he went away to LA. He like, you know, he gave up everything. It's kind of like, yeah, what would you say to someone who's kind of like questioning? They might think like, oh, it sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a different kind of story. Like if your life's on the line, then it's kind of like doesn't matter how much work it is. Like you want to save your life, then this is what you got to do. That's the boat I was in. But I talked to other people too that like they don't necessarily have the problem to the extent that like it's gonna kill them right away. But that's an even scarier situation to be in because what happens there, like imagine if my problem, like I got sober at 20 years old, right? So imagine if my problem, like, and that's because my problem was so extreme at such a young age. Like it escalated like so quickly. Imagine if it escalated like 25% of the way that it did. I probably wouldn't have I might not even be sober now. Like I might have still like I might have gotten to the point where I like started a family and stuff, but I was still like had like this like drinking thing that I didn't really know if it was a problem or not. It had been causing some problems in my life, but I can't really like pinpoint, like it's hard to like totally blame it. And I just like I like doing it. So I'm just like, making excuses for, why I should keep it in my life. I see so many people like that. They're like 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're just like booze have just been like a slow knife, like cutting through their ribs, like just so ever slowly. And that scares me even more than my situation, to be honest, because my situation was just like, thank God I spun out of control so quickly. It was so blatantly obvious that I had a problem. There was literally like no like other option for me other than like, yo, this kid is like, he needs to go away. Like, he is not well. But, these people that can kind of function off of it, it's just like, it puts you in a position to just like waste so much time using drug or alcohol. Mostly it's alcohol, right? And you wake up one day and you're 65 years old and you're just like, holy shit, alcohol has been like just ruining my life for decades. And I've just been lying to myself, and then what do you do in that situation? Because now it's just like you're no longer like in your 20s or 30s. Like you just like you're kind of like your options are a little bit more limited. When I got sober, like I was overwhelmed by the amount of options I had because like I just there was so much for me to like potentially do. Like you know, so yeah, I think that, but I also think that like anything worth having is going to take work. Like people are so naive on the internet, like with like this self-help like wave of things like spamming people's feed. It's just like people just like to think that like things just get like handed out to people, and that it is not like that. Anything worth having, like sobriety, is requires a massive amount of work. Like there's not a lot of 20-year-olds who are just out here sober. Like most 20-year-olds don't live that kind of lifestyle. But the 20-year-olds that do, I guarantee you that, 5, 10 years go by and their life's gonna sprout in different ways compared to the people that don't make that sacrifice. So it's just like, what I'm not saying it's right or wrong to do one particular thing, but I'm just like, if you're going to weigh your options, you should look at, do I want to sacrifice and work for, this thing that's going to benefit me in the long term, or would I rather just be normal like everybody else and just do the normal thing that everybody else is doing and enjoy myself in the present tense and then just see where life takes me that way. So, yeah, I don't know. I just think that like either way, it's going to require work. It requires work for me still every single day. Like, like we're talking about like prioritizing your social circle, like saying no to people, like that's not easy. It's not easy for me to be like to like constantly like turn things down because I have other like obligations that I need to like make room for in my schedule. It's not easy for me to like, somebody offers me a drink at the bar because I'm out at the bar for some reason. I'm like trying to make social connections or whatever reason. I usually I don't go. But there are a few instances where I go and I just drink water. And people like offer you a shot or offer you a beer, and it's just like, no, bro, like I don't do that. It's like that stuff's like not easy. But this is all the kind of work that it takes and requires in order to build the life.
Yeah, it is what is required, and the life you're building is like a 180 from what you had before. So just sticking on addiction, maybe not a lot of people are familiar about like just, how challenging it is and the depths you can go to. What's one hard truth about it, addiction that people usually get wrong?
That has to do with the problem. The biggest misconception about addiction is that it's a drinking problem. It's addiction has not or a drug problem. So like addiction has nothing to do with drinking or drugs. It doesn't. Addiction is a disease that centers in the mind and the spirit and the body. So there's a reason, like the book, we won't get into it, but drinking and using drugs is a symptom of the disease, right? There's a reason that people you look to use things that allow them to escape themselves. That's the easiest way to tell the difference between a real addict, alcoholic, and somebody who maybe just has like a drinking problem. Because if you remove the substance, if you remove the drink, the real addict, alcoholic starts to get worse. And the person who just has a drinking problem or a drug problem immediately starts to get better. That's how you can kind of quantify the spiritual malady between the two. And I had that experience. I would go to rehab, and I'd have a roommate in rehab because usually that's like how it works. And we'd be there for like 6 days, 14 days. And like all of a sudden, like my roommate would like start getting better. Like he would start getting better. And I'm sitting there in the other bed and I'm just like, holy shit. I'd get really freaked out because I'd be like, dude, I'm getting worse. I'm getting worse. I'm 14 days removed from the drink and I'm getting worse. Like I feel more shitty. I feel more, I'm in more turmoil, So, I think that, the biggest misconception is that like, this is just like, a drinking and a drug problem. It's really not. That's a symptom of the disease. There's a lot of misconceptions though. And the other one is like the willpower thing. Like that this is just like a willpower problem. I can sit here and tell you like I feel like I have a decent amount of willpower. Like I'm in medical school. I run ultra marathons. I just ran a 100-mile ultra marathon. Literally, I finished this morning. And here I sit on a podcast, like coaching, and people still tell me till this day, like, oh, it was just like was it just like a willpower thing for you? Like, no, it wasn't just a willpower thing for me. Like I've always had a lot of willpower, except when it comes to using drugs and alcohol. So.
Yeah, what was it that the willpower applied in other areas of your life and not with the drugs and alcohol?
Because it's just like a higher dimensional problem. Like it's just something that like I really believe that it's the spiritual malady. So I don't think that willpower really applies to that. It's like trying to say like, it's like trying to like willpower your way into like building a relationship with God. Like you can't really do that. There's certain things you can willpower. Like you can willpower running 100 miles for sure. But there's certain things like in the grand scheme of the universe that like willpower like isn't really going to help you. Like sure it might like help you discipline the way that you're going to like attack the task. But like, with faith and things like that, like I believe like you really have to like come to believe, that feeling of belief and that feeling of trust, and like that's not like a willpower thing. That's like an internal decision that needs to be made. That has nothing to do with willpower. So I think that drinking is kind of the same way because it's like in that hierarchy of like spiritual problems or like spiritual things. So that was always like the catch for me, I think.
Yeah. So for me, the consequences weren't like rehabs, DUIs, or jail, but the, for me, it was like all the worst experiences in my life. The through line was alcohol, you know? And then in terms of like the spirituality thing and believing in like a higher power or God, you know, when things were going all right, I was kind of just like, oh, I've got this, or I have willpower, or, like I have things under control.
Yeah.
But then if things got really bad, it was almost like being brought to God or something. It was like I was just brought to my knees by drugs and alcohol without like the more serious consequences, but I was still brought there. That's why I need to get sober. So, you're mentioning your own spirituality and faith. How did you kind of arrive at a point where you just were like, okay, there's something more. You started to become more spiritual.
Because noticed the people in 12 step that like had the best life, had like the most exciting look on their face every single day consistently. The people who were like, shared about being like really good husbands, really good wives, really good fathers, mothers. And I would talk to these people because like I wanted that. And, the answer was always faith in God. Like that's always what the answer was when I would ask these people about like why their life looks like the way that it looks. So even if you're like a unspiritual person or somebody that like doesn't really prioritize that kind of thing, if you are in that situation enough times where like you can actively see people like living these beautiful lives, and you continue to like ask them about like what it is that how they are able to sustain that, and the answer is always the same thing, then like eventually you kind of like are forced to have more of an open mind to it, and that's just kind of how it worked for me.
Yeah, just having that openness is huge. So
Hmm.
your handle on Instagram is David Millar Mindset. So
Yeah.
where does the mindset aspect come in, and how does that fit in with like the running and sobriety and your whole approach?
Yeah, I mean the mindset thing was kind of like I don't know, I didn't give that much thought to it. I was kind of just like needed like a handle, but I think it's important. Like I think that I don't know, like I don't really even know like how you would define mindset. Like I like would you call sobriety a mindset? Like I'm not really sure. Um Regardless though, like I think that it's just like I think it's just important to like have core like principles for yourself and to just like no matter the circumstance, be able to like stay truly authentically you and abide by those standards every single day. And I think that that's a mindset. And I think that like when I started that page, I kind of like noticed that, you know, a lot of the things that were happening in my life were directly correlated to like those standards and my way of doing things. And it was like just opening up doors in my life that I never thought would open for me. I feel I still today like feel like pretty unqualified to live the life that I live. I mean, like I'm just like a drunk at the end of the day. Like if 12 step wasn't a thing, like I would have never if I didn't go to that rehab, meet those people, like I would not be sitting here. No way. I mean, like, even if you just look at my track record, if you just look at my SAT score, if you look at my GPA most of my life, if you look at my GPA when I was using in college, like that, I would have gotten into med school. You know, it's just like, it's just crazy. But, it's possible if you have, the right kind of core principles in your life and you just wake up every day and do your best to stick to them.
Totally, and you've got to give yourself some credit. You're 6 years sober, and after doing an amazing amount of running, you're in college and you're pursuing, the right path that you believe in, which, is huge. So that imposter syndrome, I think that's something a lot of people can relate to. But something you sent me, which I want to read out now, is just this little excerpt, just just your mindset going into the 100 miler, and we'll talk about that as well. So tomorrow we go back to day one, back to the pain, back to the beginning, a reminder of what life used to feel like: addiction, struggle, hardship, internal warfare, the weight of impossibility, but enduring nonetheless. This kind of running has nothing to do with running. It's about perspective, about strength you don't inherit, but you earn by suffering long enough. A new set of eyes that makes the world look different once it's all over. It's a statement to both my old and new self that I'm not done yet, that there's still more digging to do, that there always is. I won't let I won't let progress erase my memory. I won't let success lie to me about where I came from. A broken drunk, a hopeless junkie. I remember what it was like. I won't forget. This is how I keep the message honest for those who still are trapped in addiction and alcoholism. How I keep my perspective sharp, how I ensure that I remember. I go back to the pain. I return to the weight of hopelessness. But this time I go back on purpose. I simulate the struggle so I never romanticize the escape because the struggle is what molded me and it continues to do so. DIY 100 miler tomorrow. So that's a pretty amazing, excerpt, and it's something I'll come back to myself. But yeah, what does that mean to you, and what did this 100 miler that you just did mean?
Um, I think that like all the ultras I do are like they're just so similar to the journey of recovery. So, when the success like comes into your life and like when you're removed far enough from like getting sober in the process of getting sober for me was very painful. Like I talked about like the real alcoholic versus like the just problem drinker and having that characteristic of you remove that from their life and that person gets worse. That was my experience for like my first 2 years of sobriety. I spent a lot of my sobriety still like hating who I was, not knowing what I wanted to do, and like just pounds and pounds and pounds of anxiety every single day, not able to talk to people, forget about talking to a girl, like forget about that, no way. Just not knowing what I wanted to do in my life and, some days like wanting to take my life, like a year sober, right? Like I know that sounds crazy, but like that's kind of like where I was at. That's what I had to go through to get here. And when I'm far enough, and that was the hardest thing I've ever had to do, like hands down. Like I've run a lot of long races. I'm in med school. I do a bunch of stuff. That first 2 years of recovery for me was the hardest. I think it's the hardest thing I'll ever have to do, just because it was such a long like journey, and I had no like I didn't know if it was going to work out or not. Like I was just listening to people in 12 step that were telling me I was doing a good job, and I just had no real way of knowing if like this was actually going to work out. Like when I ran that 100 miler yesterday, like I know that like if I finish the 100 miler, like I'm probably it's gonna be like a achievement. It's gonna make me feel good, right? I didn't know that about sobriety. I was like, this might just be a waste of fucking time. So whenever I do these like long races, a lot of it is to just like go back to that first 2 years of recovery because like especially with the coaching too, it's like I see a lot of clients that are in that state and when life gets better and things like start like straightening out and success comes and all this stuff, like you forget. You forget what it used to feel like. You forget about the pain. You forget that used to wake up 6 months sober and like hate everything about yourself and sit in your bed and be like, I don't know how I'm going to possibly get through the day. And that was a reality for me for a while. And it's not that way anymore. I wake up excited. I have things that I love to do. I haven't thought about killing myself since that time, right? But it's important for me to remember that period in my life because that was such a valuable time for me because it molded me into everything that I am now. And the way that I do that a lot of times is I need to go back to that pain. And ultras are a great way to go back to that pain. And every time I run an ultra and it starts getting hard around mile 60, mile 70, I am thinking like most of that time, I am thinking and reflecting about that first 2 years and everything that I went through and just kind of remembering the situations, remembering like the thoughts, remembering the pain, and while enduring real life pain, running. So it's like it just does something to my perspective that kind of like just makes me feel a little bit more grateful for everything that I went through, and it allows me to just remember where I came from and remember that that's a reality for people, that like today, like just like me, like there's people struggling with that. So I want to be able to relate to them. I want to be able to have my like perspective on what that was like sharp. And a way for me to do that is to simulate what that was actually like. And there's a bunch of other things about Ultra I could talk about, just besides that it does for you in terms of like success and like mindset and stuff like that. But in regarding that post, that was like the main takeaway, I think, was, I don't want to forget that period of my life. And Ultra is just a great way to kind of go back to that place and just mine a little more wisdom from it. And just allows me to kind of walk away with like I said, like a new set of eyes on the world, like it just does something like that for me.
So I feel as though like such a difficult time, early sobriety, before sobriety, when you're really, at your lowest, you're struggling, you're wondering if you should continue to live. Like that just sounds so like hopeless and depressing. But you're like going back there, you know? So like just explain how that like helps your running, because just like kind of on the surface, it would seem like, oh wow, that would just make someone more depressed, or it would kind of take them out of the present moment. So how do you you're in a run, how do you utilize that in a long run that's difficult?
Because I think that my perspective on pain is a lot different than most people's. I think I look at pain as like the opportunity of a lifetime. I think pain is such a great teacher. And a lot of that first 2 years of my recovery, it basically like it was an ultra marathon. It was in a way, like I wasn't running, but it was an ultra marathon. Like I was going through the same kind of pain that I would face in an ultra marathon, right? So it's just like the weight of impossibility, like having to like, getting to mile 70 and like I still have 30 miles to go. Like I can't even fathom running another 1 mile. How, so just like this just impossible journey and like hopelessness. And, I think that it's important because I think that really like life is going to continue to throw things at you like that. Like there's not, you don't just get sober and life's just like rainbows and butterflies. You get sober and life continues to happen to you. And you need to find ways to like be able to deal with that kind of stuff, you know? And the further away I get from pain, the more complacent I get. So I need to keep going back there and keep reminding myself of like, I went through this and I made it to the other side. And not only that, but like I went through it and I'm so comfortable with it that I voluntarily go back to it and feel what it was like to the best of my ability. I simulate it to the best of my ability, right? Because I'm not gonna like be out here like relapsing. Like that would just be stupid. But like, ultra, it's like a healthy kind of torture. You know what I mean? So like I go back voluntarily and I feel what I need to feel. And that's a priority to me too. It's like I'm in med school, right? Like I don't really have the time to be. I mean, I do like I make the time, but like my time arguably would be better spent. But it was just such a transformative period of my life, and it did so much for me. Like sitting in that pain, that uncomfortable pain for 2 years and just having to figure it out. Like just God giving me these things and me just having to figure it out and walk through it. Like gave me so much. It gave me self-esteem. It gave me confidence. I rebuilt who I was. Like I literally like just sat through that fire until it stopped burning and I just like came out this like new person. Right? So, it's important. Like I don't need to run another 100 miler. Like I don't need to. I've already ran three of them. Like I don't need to. The one we did, like it wasn't even a race. We walked out our front door. We were like, we're gonna go run 100 on a random Monday. That's literally what we did. So like this has nothing to do with running. It really doesn't. It has nothing to do with running. It just has everything to do with that like ultra is the perfect platform to go back to those like traumatic experiences and to just like do a little bit more digging and to kind of like walk away with more of that perspective. And it kind of just like it just reminds you. Like it reminds you of the importance of doing hard things. It reminds you of the importance of not quitting. It reminds you of the importance of pain and of listening. And yeah, I don't know. I it's just obviously like this is very extreme. I'm not saying everybody like should go run 100 miles. Is not what I'm saying. Like it's just something, I've just kind of found running and like it became that. But I do think that there's probably like, something for everybody to like some extent, but yeah, I don't know. Like it's always been more than like just running 50 miles or 100 miles for me. It's always been about like the emotional journey through that.
Yeah, it's like more than running, as you say. It's more, it's what you almost become in the process of completing these long runs, as opposed to just having a 100 mile, notch, or medal. So I'm assuming you didn't just wake up one day and say, right, tomorrow I'm going to do a 100 miler. And like, as a caution to other people, I'd hope they wouldn't do that as well, because I'm sure
No.
it's not all, sunshine and rainbows in the 100 mile arena. So just, give a little bit of experience, strength, and hope on running ultras, how you got there, and maybe like some of the setbacks you had to overcome in the process of getting to 100 miles. Because just for context, a marathon is 26 miles. So you've done 3 and 3/4, whatever marathons, but in one go. And like, I think it's less than 1% of the whole population of the world have even done a marathon. So you're in like very rarefied air to have done 300 milers. So it's like you're the exception, you're not the rule. So yeah, just tell us a little bit about how you got to the 100 miler and some cautionary words.
Yeah, so I got into running because I'd been a runner. Like I said, I played sports. I ran a little bit. I never really I was good at it, but I was more concerned with partying, so it kind of like wrecked my performance a lot. But when I got sober, I got more into it a little bit. And then I was going back to college as a sober person, and I didn't know anybody sober at my college. And again, like going back to like the prioritizing your social circle. I'm going back to this university, a university I used to get fucked up at. Like I'm going back to the same university. They let me come back. Um, so, I'm like moving my shit there and I'm like, okay, I need to stay sober. How am I going to find people that are like not doing the normal thing? And the first thing that like came in my head was cross country team because like the cross country team is just like they're just they're not the kind of people. It's not the football team. You know what I mean? Like the cross country kids. So I was just like, that might be a good idea. So I joined the cross country team and had just such an amazing experience on the team because I was correct. Like kids who run cross country are literally training year round because it's like cross country is in the fall, and then winter track is in the winter, and then spring track is in the spring. And then like that's literally a year, you're competing year round. Your summer is filled with training for the 3 seasons. So the kids that were on the team were just like they were serious dudes. And they just didn't care much for drinking. Would they go out and drink occasionally? Like, yeah, they would, but more often than not, they weren't doing that, especially if it was during the season. They were in the library. So that's kind of how I got like my academic performance to kind of like climb back up because I just started taking after them in more ways than just running. And yeah, it was a really beautiful thing because I just like made friends with these people that were just like they just weren't into doing the normal thing. And it was exactly what I needed. It supported my sobriety. And I'm still friends with a lot of them today. So I competed in college, and I liked it. Like I thought it was hard. Like, and I at that point I was like, I know hard things are good for me. I know structure is good for me. So I did that, but I always was a fan of like trail running. Like I just really loved trail running, and by the time I graduated college, like a lot of ultras are on the trail, like they're on trails. They're in like beautiful like state parks and stuff like that. So I just always had an urge to like try to run some trail stuff. And a lot of them are ultras. So the first one I did was like a 50 mile, and from that point on, I just like fell in love with it, fell in love with the community, fell in love with like the distance, and just like from there I was just like I'd finished the 50 miler and it like totally wrecked me, and I was just like, wow, I can't fathom how somebody does 100. And then I just gradually increased distance, and just like fell in love with it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like that pain that you talked about, it's almost like it could almost be an addiction in some ways. Did you ever find that you kind of just swapped one addiction for another with like the running, or do you think there's like a risk of that even happening?
Yeah, 100%. I'm actually a big advocate of that. I think that like the way that the addict brain kind of works is like it has the obsession complex. And that was never really, I know like people talk about it like being removed. It was never really like, that's just not really my experience. Like, I feel like my obsessions were kind of redirected, more would be the better word for me. Because I'm still very like alcoholic thinking about a lot of things. They're just not about things that are like self-defeating. Like they're about things that like serve the world or put me in a position to serve the world. So like medicine, right? Like medicine was just something that like I just always was interested in, especially when I went back to college as a sober person and like got actually started paying attention to class. I was like, oh, I like this. And I would just have nights in the library where like it was like the books were like my drug. Like I was just obsessed. I was obsessed with learning. And I really think it's a valuable skill because not a lot of people have the capacity to be obsessed with things. Like they don't have the capacity to feel things so deeply and care about things so deeply and chase things that make them like internally feel good, like we do. So a lot of that has been like you could argue, yeah, like a misplaced addiction. And ultra that way too. And I think you see that commonly with the crowd that does ultras. Like a lot of them are they're just fucked, like they're fucked up. Like me, like you talk to somebody in ultra, it's like you're no matter who you talk to, you're gonna get like a really cool story from like that person, I feel like, because they've been through like whatever, like trauma, addiction, abuse, betrayal, whatever it is. Like that person is I have a quote on my Instagram. It's ultra marathons are where broken people go to heal. So yeah, you definitely see that at ultra.
Yeah, I did it was meant to be it was a half marathon in Zion, and then the next day, kind of like a 24-hour like ultra in a way, half marathon, and then an 18 miler, but it's broken up. Nothing like, what it could have been. But I met some really cool people on the trails there, and running out in nature on a trail, especially. There's something about that, like time you're just completely isolated. I cannot like recommend it enough, you know? And especially in some new like novel like location that you haven't been to before, it's like very, very exciting. But you know, running isn't always like that where you know, I'm pumped up to run and like sometimes even, you know, just being like I guess kind of like an addict as well is like I won't be motivated to run and I'll still run or I'll feel good and you know, it can be kind of like a back and forth mentally, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, how do you stay motivated, you know, but especially on those days where like maybe your energy's low or stress in life is high or just, you know, you might have some personal issues going on that you're stressed about. Yeah, how do you kind of like still show up for your running, you know, and your long-term goals when, you know, you're depleted?
I just like think about the person I'm trying to be in the future. And I think about like how, the things that I want to do require the kind of person that can continue to perform regardless of the stress, regardless of the, um, you know, like circumstances that life throws at you. Like, I don't know, sometimes I find myself like getting super stressed out with school or something like that. But then I think about like I'm trying to like be a surgeon. So like I'm gonna close up a patient one day. I'm not gonna know like, I'm gonna be thinking about like, did I do everything right? And I'm gonna have to go back home to my family and just like be able to like, be a father and be a husband and, be able to like kind of compartmentalize that like stress in a weird way. So I always just think about like, when personal problems come up, like social problems, like whatever it is, like I just kind of try to think of it as an opportunity for, where I want to be in the future. And it's kind of just like a mini like simulation of that. Um, and also like I just really try to stay true to me, as much as I can. Like I really like who I am. And you know, I just I just want to be like authentic. And if there's certain things going on, like I do a lot of journaling and stuff like that. So I really try to like prioritize like make sure my thinking is like good and stuff like that. And I really just try to like go with my gut feeling on a lot of things. Obviously, like I run stuff by God and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I just think that like I don't know, like I'm my own person and I want to have enough like faith and trust and courage in the person that I am to like be able to, trust when I make decisions or, just be able to like rely on myself when things get tough. So,
Yeah. Yeah, to be the person that you want to be and look into the future, sort of future forecast. Okay, if I get this run done, if I show up today, it'll make, you know, me one step closer to being the person that I want to be, which is that's yeah, powerful.
yeah.
So, you know, you've done the three ultra marathons, 100 milers. You know, what are your long-term goals when it comes to running? Have you kind of completed everything you wanted? And like, you know, if you still have goals, what like inspires you to continue going after doing so much racing already?
No, I don't really think that. I think the ultras are just kind of like a side thing. I don't really have any goals with them. Um, I don't know. Like I just don't see myself. I really like get so much more enjoyment out of them by like having other things that I'm actually doing and then like just doing them on the side. Like I just think it's cooler that way. Like I think it's cooler to like I'm way more impressed by like the person who's running ultras and also like a school teacher and a mom and has a full-time job than I am like the running influencer that just like doesn't have anything else going on and they're just like training all day for to run ultras. You know what I mean? Like so I kind of like just gravitate more toward that. Like I just like doing it as a side thing. Not that there's anything wrong with doing it full time, but I just think that like I'm just more impressed by the people that can like hand juggle multiple things and continue to show up and race. So yeah, no goals there. My goals really like um live inside of like medicine and the online coaching and platform. That's where my goals are.
Wow. So then like with your typical running, like how do you kind of manage that? If your main goals aren't with running, how do you like what does a typical week look like for you, like your baseline running, and then maybe in like the 5 weeks leading up to like, an ultra marathon?
So running is kind of like such like a correlational thing. So like running, like while it's not my main goal, it really like benefits all areas of my life in some way. Like the skills that you learn when you're running like high mileage weeks, competing, like all that, it's so correlational to everything else in life, right? Like I was thinking about this like last night when it was like 4 a.m. and I'm like, it's cold and I am like 75 miles in and I'm thinking about how like I'm thinking about like how long it's going to take us to finish, and it took us like 24 hours. And I'm thinking like when I'm in residency, like a surgical residency, that's going to be like a normal thing for me. Like to just do like like I'm on call, like I'm 24 hours, like I'm not getting a lot of sleep and I need to go to the OR and just like perform regardless. So, those things are very correlational, I feel like, to other aspects. So that's kind of why I prioritize them, if that makes sense. Like it's not like a goal. I don't have like goals there, but I'm kind of just like it's just something that like serves me very well and I've taken a lot from it. And because of that, like it's incorporated into my life. And it's also just like physical fitness, right? Like it's just like a healthy outlet to blow off stress and stuff like that. But
So, so
typical week for me looks like if I'm training for a race, I really like to run 80-mile weeks. That's a lot of miles though, so sometimes it doesn't always work out. And if I'm like after I just ran this race, I'll probably just be in the gym for like a couple months. I'm probably not going to run for a bit. I also have just like a really busy year coming up with school, so I'm not going to be able to race probably until like a year from now. And yeah, besides that, it's just like low key running, like 10 to 40 miles a week if I'm not like training for anything.
yeah, you'll periodize your year and ramp up the weight training. So weight training is something that, as a trainer myself, I really try to focus on, and especially with the run club I co-lead, Progression Run Club. So we're incorporating more strength training with our runners. So, you know, how do you incorporate strength training, coming into your off season and then also, while your running mileage is up as well?
I don't really lift for that. Like I tend not to. I kind of just like if I'm in the gym, I'm more so lifting to like try to put on mass and put on muscle. It's rarely about like doing things that are going to benefit my running. I that might be like naive of me. I just honestly like the thing is that like I just don't have a lot of time to I'm never like in the gym and running. Like if I like for example like this big race I had coming up because of my schedule, like there's no time to like be in the gym if I need to train for a 100-mile race. Like all my free time goes toward running, and it's just time on the legs. Because I think that that's like the best way to. I mean, for ultra, I think it might be different. Like if you're trying to run like a fast mile or a 5K, but for ultra, I'm just like a really big advocate of just like time on the legs. I have a limited amount of time. I think the best use of that time is just time on the legs, getting outside, putting the shoes on and getting in a run. Um, but yeah, like if I had all the time in the world, I think I would definitely like cross train. I cross trained when I was, well, actually, no, we didn't even really cross train in college. We probably should have though. It probably would have been a good move. Um, but yeah, so when I revert from running and just like these next couple months, I'll be in the gym. It's mostly just about like putting on mass. I've always been like a skinny person, so I just and the running like makes doesn't help that, right? So I try to like be I like to be at a certain weight and I like to like not look like a runner as much as I can. So that's kind of like and I enjoy doing that too. It's a nice switch up. So that's kind of like where my weight training is focused.
Yeah, I love that. It makes a lot of sense because in college, kind of like you outlined, you kind of just run all year round or most of the year. And then if you think of like, professional sports, they have like an off season where typically they try to add on some mass, kind of armor up for the tough season ahead, which is effectively what you're doing, whether it's planned or not, you're doing it. And yeah, I love that of kind of keeping it simple, focusing on the gym when you're in the gym. And then when you've got the race coming up, focusing on the race at hand. So, I'm sure you've had your fair share of setbacks. You probably didn't set out to do the three ultra marathons and you just did them no issue. So can you think of any kind of setbacks you had and just like how you overcame them as it relates to your running and reaching your running goals?
I think a big setback I had actually was the last 100 I did over the summer. It was just like a gnarly race, and I just was a total wimp when it started getting tough, and I ended up finishing the race and doing well, but I can 100% confidently tell you that if I didn't have the people that I had there to support me, I would not have finished that race. I was ready to quit. I was begging to quit. And they didn't let me. So, but that kind of bothered me because I was like, I know like that's not the I know we all have bad days, right? I know we all have bad days, but and that might have just been a bad day, but I was bothered by that because I was just like, I know that that's not like how I handle um I just know I'm better than that. So that was kind of what prompted this run that we just did because I was like, you know what, like I can't end on that note. Um, not that I was never gonna do another one after that one, but I just knew I was better than that. So the one I just did, I was like, I'm pretty happy with like in terms of like it actually took me slower to run, but in terms of like my mindset and everything about like when it got tough, I've remained very strong. So I think that I've also had a lot of academic setbacks. There's a test you have to take going into college or going into medical school. It's called the MCAT, 8 hour long test, like organic chemistry, just like crazy stuff. Like I don't know, like that was never my get down. You know what I mean? Like I was like doing blow, I was like smoking crack. Like I was never the kind of student. Like I had to shove all my like, med school prereqs into like a year and a half of like undergrad. So I sit down to take this test and I'm just like, at baseline, I'm just not really a great student. And I would just fail so much, like doing the practice exams. My score would be so shitty. I'd read about people getting like like such good scores. It's already so competitive to get in. I took like 15 like practice exams before actually taking my test, which is crazy because each exam is like 8 hours long. So you can imagine like I'm just sitting there like just grinding, trying to like improve my score. And really didn't even improve that much. But that was just like another thing where it was just like definitely like a setback, and I just felt like I kept failing and failing and failing. But I ended up getting into school and it worked out. So
Yeah, you got through it, and I feel like the running definitely played a part in that. It's kind of like a through line, like recovery, running, school. If you can overcome setbacks in one, it kind of spills over to others. So it's a pretty stressful experience to have to do like a test that's, give or take 8 hours, 15 times.
yeah.
And some people will say once an addict, always an addict. So when those pressure situations come up, or you have a setback or a challenge, or just life just smacks you in the face, how do you like stop yourself from relapsing? Like what's like some safeguards you have and measures you take to stay on this path of sobriety?
I haven't thought of like drinking or using drugs in a very long time, like years. So I think if you can build a life that's like that is naturally just like a high, you're never gonna want to go back to like the fake like synthetic high. So like I look at like everything in my life. Like I'm looking like at like I have like research posters up on my wall. I got like pictures of my family up on my wall. Like I got quotes. I got my letterhead from like college. And the first thing that like crosses my mind when I see all this, like if I opened up this window shade right now, you'd see like a huge like medical center, academic medical center, like where patients come and trust that they're gonna get the care that they need. The first thing that crosses my mind whenever I see any of that is like only because I'm sober. That's the only reason that this stuff hangs on my wall, that's outside my window, that I get to go to class every day and like spend time like which is a privilege to like learn about the human body, learn about anatomy, learn about disease, learn about medication, learn how to actually help patients. None of that would have it's just like it was never in the cards for me. Like it's so blatantly obvious that it was never in the cards for me. It's only because I got sober that this stuff happened. So, I just I just like trust the process, man. Like that's really what it comes down to. Like if something doesn't go my way, like I'm really like I know it sounds so cliche and like I'm not perfect with this, but like a lot of the times like I do nail it. Like I do because I just like I've had so many things not go my way before like in sobriety and it just like it was for a reason. Like it works out. And you know, I kind of like talk a little bit arrogantly like that because like I journal on myself like all the time, right? So like when life is happening to me, it's not just like happening and I'm just like chopping it up in my head. And this is a big thing with my clients too. It's like life is happening. I'm taking it to my journal. I'm studying it in the journal and I'm keeping journals over years and years and years of just raw sober experience. And, you know, as a result of me like doing those things, and like having that, you know, knowledge of like, oh, this thing didn't go my way in 2022 and like as a result like this happened. This thing didn't go my way in like 2023 and this happened as a result. It's just like I just trust that like this is going to work out how it's supposed to work out. You know, I take opportunities as they come. I try my best. Sometimes my best isn't enough and you know, most of the time that's for a reason that maybe I'm not familiar with yet but likely will be familiar with in the future. So, um, yeah, man, sobriety is just it's given me everything. Like I just know that, and I have the relapsing experience of trying to get clean. Like if I were if I were to go back to that, like I would just it would not be good. I just yeah, would not be good.
Yeah, you can say that again.
Yeah.
So you and me both. So, we talked a little bit about running and how it can be like addictive and, we might have that in our kind of personalities and our makeup. So how do you, with your experience, draw the line between you're being disciplined and it's healthy with the running specifically, and it's like a form of self-punishment?
Mm. Um. Hmm. I don't know, honestly. Like I do like use it. I kind of do like use it as like a healthy torture thing. Um, I don't know like where you draw the line. I don't think I have enough time in my day to like use it to the extent that it's like really damaging me. Um, I mean, I'm having a hard time answering that question because like if you like looked at like what I just did like yesterday, then like you know, the normal person would probably be like, yeah, that's not healthy. And the reality is it's like it's not healthy. Like my knee is like I can't walk right now. You know, like that it probably took a couple maybe like a couple months off my life to be honest. Like running that far, staying up for 24 hours, not really eating anything except like easily digestible foods. You know, being in the cold like I don't know. That's like hard for me to answer because I feel like I am like a psychopath and but just because I'm a psycho doesn't mean that like it's not healthy to be a psycho every once in a while. Like I think it is. So and I but I think everybody's different. I think different strokes for different folks. Like I just that's my thing. Like I'm extreme in a lot of ways, you know, and it's just like it's a rush and you know like everything we talked about kind of like there's some symbolic piece to it that like it reminds me of things that I went through and you know cleans up my perspective so but yeah I don't know if I would consider that healthy if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the honesty because it's very tricky. I think a lot of people struggle with that, and you know, it could even be the opposite way, where someone is not exercising out of a form of like, oh, who am I to get, better and healthier and stuff as well. So, that's something that every individual has to decide. But David, this has been amazing, and thanks so much for your time and the work you're doing on yourself. It's benefiting a lot of people. So, do you want to just wrap up with a final message and tell people where they can hear more about your story?
Yeah, for sure. I also appreciate you having me on. Really excited we got to talk. Yeah, so most of my things are on my Instagram at David Millar Mindset. Um, And yeah, I don't know. I talk a lot about sobriety, talk about my journey, talk about running, talk about med school, and just talk about, you know, things that I think are cool. And yeah, I mean, I guess one piece of advice would just be like if you're considering getting sober, if you feel like your life would benefit from it in any way, I can sit here confidently and tell you that you are probably 100% right. Not only have I seen it in my life, but I've also seen it in many, many, many people that I work with one on one. I've seen it in people around me, like my sobriety directly affecting other people's decision to not use or drink, and I've seen their life get better. I've seen people in 12 step, same thing. So, I just encourage people that like if they have those underlying thoughts, if they're listening to podcasts like these and they still do like, drink or smoke or whatever, I'd encourage you to, maybe just challenge the idea of like, why am I doing that? Would my life look better in the long term if I cut these things out?
Yeah, that's a great message, David. And thanks for your time. And that's all we got. Thanks.